Welcome to Thinking Deeper by 6-7. Today we're tearing into a really profound concept. What happens when two massive worldviews just collide head-on?
Right.
On one side, you've got this deeply ingrained tradition of scientific skepticism, materialism,
The
atheism.
world as we can measure it.
Exactly. And on the other, you have the profound, verifiable, and often, well, miraculously demonstrated reality of God realization. We're actually looking at a body of evidence that claims to offer empirical proof of the divine.
And that tension is really the core of what we're looking at. The space between intellectual denial and this deep inner certainty. Our source for this is Paramahansa Yogananda's incredible spiritual autobiography, Autobiography of a Yogi.
A classic.
It is. And what makes it so fascinating is it doesn't really argue for faith. It just presents spiritual reality as an observable, repeatable fact, backed by these specific, often mind-bending anecdotes.
And for you listening to this, trying to navigate just the chaos of information in the modern age, this deep dive is a shortcut. It's a way into foundational Eastern thought. We're going straight to these huge concepts, Maya, karma, yoga, but we're not treating them like dry philosophy.
No, not at all.
We're looking at how a deep spiritual path can address that feeling of information overload by seeking a single unifying truth. A truth so absolute it obliterates the basis for intellectual doubt. It makes the whole debate about God's existence kind of irrelevant.
The mission here is to see how this idea of a spiritual science offers a path from just believing to actually knowing, from belief to certainty.
Okay, so let's set the stage for this journey. We start with the author, Mukunda Lal Ghosh, who we now know as Paramahansa Yogananda.
Right.
He was born in the late 19th century in India into a family from the Kshatriya caste. That's the warrior and ruler lineage, so they were often, very pragmatic people.
And this family wasn't new to spirituality, not by a long shot. They were already initiated disciples of a great master, Lahiri Mahasaya.
Which is a critical detail. But let's look at the home dynamics, because they really mirror this big tension we're talking about between tradition and the modern skeptical mind.
Exactly. His father, Bhagavati Charan Ghosh, he kind of embodied that Western analytical spirit. He was a successful executive, a mathematician, a logician.
So he's guided by intellect.
Completely. The source describes him as kind, but also grave, at times even stern. Reason was his guide.
You can almost see him as the default intellectual atheist, or at least a really hardened skeptic, if he hadn't already been on this path.
That's a good way to put it. But then his mother was the perfect balance. She was called the Queen of Hearts. She taught her son, Mukunda, through this immediate unconditional love and devotion.
The mind versus the heart.
Right there in his own home.
But the source is very clear that despite these, radically different approaches, both parents had a genuinely saintly nature. They were both seekers, just coming at the truth from different angles.
So this internal debate, this clash between his father's logic and his mother's faith, it gets resolved for young Mukunda really early on. It gets abolished. That's the word the text implies. Yeah. His path became solid, not because he read a book or won an argument, but because of these direct, personal, and frankly undeniable mystical experiences.
They just bypassed the need for intellectual faith.
Completely.
So the first one is just extraordinary. It happens when he's just a child. The vision of Iswara.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's sick, lying in bed, and the walls of his room just melt away.
Literally.
That's how he describes it. They're replaced by this immense screen of radiance inside his own forehead, and on it, he sees Himalayan yogis deep in meditation. He asks them, in his mind, "Who are you?" And they tell him they're the yogis who are leading him to want to go to the Himalayas.
And that's not even the main event.
No, that's just the prelude.
Yeah.
The yogis vanish, but the light itself expands. It becomes this astonishing, ever-widening circle of luminescence that just spreads out to infinity.
And when he mentally asks what this amazing glow is,
A voice, which he described as like murmuring clouds of reality, proclaims, "I am Iswara, I am light."
Iswara. God is the ruler of the universe.
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine that kind of direct communication? It creates this permanent, unquenchable longing for the divine. It just overrides any future intellectual doubt he could possibly have.
The question is no longer, does God exist?
Right. The question becomes, why did the source of all existence, this infinite light, just speak to me?
It shifts the entire framework. God is no longer a historical concept you inherit. God is a current, tangible, sensory reality. The voice says, "I am light," which immediately connects the divine to the fundamental physics of the universe.
So this foundation of direct experience is the antidote the text presents to intellectual atheism.
It is. You can't logically debate something you have literally seen and heard for yourself with infinite light as the medium.
And that huge, overwhelming experience is then immediately reinforced by something much more mundane, but just as miraculous, the kite story.
Ah, the kite miracle. This is the ultimate challenge to the idea of mere coincidence.
Absolutely. So he has a picture of the Divine Mother, Kali, who symbolizes eternal Mother Nature. And his sister, Uma, basically dares him, pray for a neighbor's kite that just got away.
And Mukunda does. He concentrates intensely on the Divine Mother and his wish. And what happens next is, well, it's incredible. The kite immediately loses its direction and just floats right toward him.
It doesn't just land near him, though. The string does something very specific.
It entangles perfectly with a cactus plant, forming a loop that he could just easily grab.
But the sister, she's the voice of skepticism here. She calls it an extraordinary accident.
Naturally. So Mukunda doubles down. He doesn't just pray for a second kite. He prays with this intense, laser-like focus. He's demanding a verifiable sign.
And the second kite, which two other kids are fighting over, gets yanked by the wind and heads straight for him.
And that helpful cactus plant once again secures the string. The probability of that happening twice is, well, it's essentially zero.
The lesson there is just so profound for this whole argument. This immediate, tangible, and repeated response from the universe, it just counters the foundation of atheism, this idea of an absent or non-responsive God.
It demonstrates that focused consciousness, when you direct it with enough will, has a measurable effect on the material world, on probability itself.
And that's the link to what he calls spiritual science. He realized there is an explosive vibratory power in speech, or in focused intention.
Yes, and he connects that power to AUM, the cosmic vibratory power that underlies all of existence, all atomic energy.
So matter isn't just dead stuff.
Not at all. It's focused vibration. And consciousness is the ultimate frequency controller. This sets up the entire methodology of yoga we'll get into later.
That consciousness through focused vibration is the mechanism for manipulating matter and energy. It puts the divine into a scientific framework, not just a poetic one.
And this first phase of his life really culminates with the death of his mother, which cements his path to renunciation.
Right. Before she died, she had a vision and left a message for him, delivered by his brother, about a mystic amulet.
An amulet that confirmed his path lay far from worldly ambitions. It was steering him away from the life of a householder.
So this amulet, it shows up at the exact moment he's wrestling with this question. It's a sign from the masters.
It's like a piece of divine GPS. The text even says the amulet was a temporary tool, that it would vanish when its purpose was served.
But even with GPS, the path isn't always smooth. He runs into external discouragement, which again, it's like a mirror of intellectual skepticism.
He meets a self-styled clairvoyant pundit.
Right, who tells him flat out not to become a monk. He says Mukunda can't work out his karma without worldly experiences like marriage and a career.
It's the voice of conventional wisdom, of society trying to pull him back into the known world.
The ultimate test of his growing faith. But then the universe responds, instantly.
He makes this silent internal prayer, a desperate plea to God. Should I be a renunciate or a worldly man? And in that moment, a noble sadhu, a holy man, just appears outside the compound walls.
A total stranger.
Seemingly materialized out of thin air. And he confirms the inner call. He says, "Son, don't listen to that ignoramus. In response to your prayer, I am telling you to follow the path of renunciation."
So the pattern is established, doubt arises, and the universe responds with immediate, undeniable physical proof.
A voice of light, two kites, a stranger appearing on cue. It's about building faith on cumulative, verifiable data, not just on hopeful thinking.
It teaches you that doubt is okay, but the answer comes through experience if you're focused enough to see it.
And the rest of the source material just builds on this. It moves beyond simple responsiveness to, well, to outright defiance of known physical laws.
For the listener, these specific anecdotes are the hooks. They're what make the philosophy of consciousness over matter really stick. They're the data points that materialist science just can't explain.
And the most iconic one, the one that is a direct assault on our understanding of space and time, is the story of Swami Paramahansa, the saint with two bodies.
This challenges the core assumption that consciousness is trapped in a single body in a single place.
Completely. Yogananda is visiting him, trying to find his father's friend, a man named Kedarnath Babu.
And Paramahansa just casually reads his mind.
Just like that. He says the friend will arrive in exactly half an hour. So Yogananda sits there, determined to watch the master, to make sure he doesn't leave the room. He even notes the yogi's wooden sandals under the platform.
He's conducting his own little experiment.
He is. 30 minutes later, Paramahansa announces, "Your friend is nearing the door." And Kedarnath Babu walks in, completely astonished. He immediately starts telling this unbelievable story.
He says he was bathing in the Ganges, which is a significant distance away.
When Pranavananda suddenly appeared right next to him, a second, fully physical body.
And the second body gives him instructions. Go quickly to my apartment. Bhagavati's son is waiting for you.
And the key is the timing. Kedarnath Babu says the walk from the Ganges takes half an hour.
So on the road, the yogi asks him, how long will it take you? And when he confirms 30 minutes, the yogi says, I have something else to do, and just
Vanishes.
Yeah.
Instantaneously.
And here's the kicker.
The punchline. Yogananda confirms that the original Pranavananda, the one he was watching, never moved. The wooden sandals were still under the platform. The friend is staring at the man who just bilocated.
Wait, hold on. This just challenges everything. It's not just psychic communication. The friend saw and interacted with a physically present body that covered miles in 0 time.
And the original body confirms it never moved. The friend's question is perfect. Are we living in this material age or are we dreaming?
That's the only appropriate response.
It is the ultimate refutation of physical limitation. If a master can hold consciousness in 2 places at once, it means consciousness isn't bound by our laws of space and time. It points to a state where a yogi's identity is merged with the non-local consciousness of the cosmos.
And this principle, the mind's total supremacy over biology, it just keeps getting repeated, like with the Tiger Swami, a man of immense physical strength.
Famous for subduing ferocious tigers with his bare hands in his youth.
But the source presents this as a spiritual lesson, not just a feat of strength.
Right. When asked how he did it, he said, "You look upon tigers as tigers. I know them as pussycats." He perceived them differently as fellow expressions of God, which rob them of their power to cause fear.
But then he immediately turns the lesson inward.
Which is the core yogic principle. No spiritual benefit accrues by knocking beasts unconscious. Rather be victor over the inner prowlers.
The tigers of our own desires, our own doubts.
Exactly. The real battle is internal. And the greatest form of atheism from this worldview isn't denying God, it's denying the spiritual power within yourself. Skepticism that leads you to believe you're limited. That's the real inner prowler.
Then you have the story of the forgiving yogi. This one is incredible. A sadhu's arm is nearly cut off by a policeman's sword, a horrific wound.
But the yogi just retreats and focuses his intention.
And the policeman, who is now horrified and also very curious, goes with another officer to find him later.
And the sadhu lets them examine his arm. They find no scar or trace of hurt.
Immediate, complete healing, achieved through forgiveness and willpower.
The officers are forced to conclude that India still has this inexhaustible fund of divine wealth, that these spiritual skyscrapers exist right alongside ordinary people.
It shows that the physical body, even after severe trauma, is completely malleable to a focused, non-reactive mind. Forgiveness isn't just a moral virtue here.
No, it's a metaphysical power that cancels out the karmic effect of the injury.
Then there's the sleepless saint, Ram Gopal. This one is just a fundamental defiance of biology.
He meditated 20 hours a day for 25 years, and he required no sleep.
How is that even explained?
He said his body was rested in the complete calmness of the superconsciousness. He could keep his organs in a state of suspended animation, constantly charged by cosmic energy or prana. He argued it was a much deeper rest than the troubled sleep most of us get.
It almost sounds like a kind of metabolic optimization. If your system is constantly being recharged by an external cosmic energy source, you don't need sleep to repair tissue in the same way.
That's the idea. But even with this phenomenal mastery over his own body, he was incredibly humble. He still wondered if 45 years of meditation were enough to please God, because God is eternity itself.
The mastery is anchored in humility. It keeps it from becoming just ego.
And then we have the perfume saint, Ganda Baba, whose miracles were more subtle. He could manipulate the molecular structure of scents.
Transferring the fragrance of a rose to a scentless flower, or making someone's skin smell like jasmine.
It highlights the vibrational nature of matter. If you could see matter as just condensed light, you can manipulate the vibrational pattern that our brain interprets as a chemical signature, as a scent.
But the source material, I notice, immediately balances these miracle stories with a philosophical check.
Yes, with the quote from the Persian mystic Abu Sayyid.
who basically laughed at people who were proud of their little powers over water or air, pointing out that animals and even devils can do things like that.
True faith, Abu Said taught, is to live righteously among people, to buy and sell, to engage with society, but to be never for a single instant forgetful of God.
So the miracles are proof of concept. They're evidence.
But they are never the goal. The goal is always inner realization, which you then have to apply in the world.
Okay, but the materialist listener is always going to demand a scientific explanation for all of this. And this is the section where the text tries to build that bridge between Eastern metaphysics and Western science.
Right, showing that advanced science actually supports the unified spiritual view. And the key to this argument is the work of Jagadish Chandra Bose.
J.C. Bose, a giant of Indian science. He invented a wireless coherer before Marconi, but then he turned his attention from the inorganic to the organic world.
He realized that fundamental unity was the most important scientific frontier.
And he invented the Bose crescograph, an instrument with 10 million magnifications.
10 million. At a time when microscopes had a few thousand, it opened up these incredible new vistas, and it demonstrated scientifically what the yogis already knew intuitively, the indivisible unity of all life.
He proved this with lab experiments. He showed that plants, and even some metals, show the same signs of fatigue, depression, recovery, and death as animals do.
The fern experiment is the most famous one, and it's so visceral. He gives a fern chloroform, and the crescograph shows its life functions just stop.
Anesthesia.
Surgical anesthesia. Then he revives it with an antidote. He also shows that stabbing the fern's tissue registers as spasmodic flutters, the experience of pain.
And slicing the stem caused violent agitation and then the flat line of death.
Bose's conclusion, based on repeatable science, was that a uniform plan links every form in manifold nature. This just demolishes the materialist idea of fragmentation, the idea that consciousness is a biological accident limited to a few species.
If a fern can feel pain, the whole foundation of separateness just shatters.
And it supports the unified spiritual perspective of Vedanta.
So if you accept Bose's findings, the miracles of the forgiving yogi or the sleepless saints start to look less like magic.
And more like an advanced application of energetic laws we're just beginning to understand.
This scientific bridge then allows the text to talk about the core philosophical principle behind the miracles, maya.
Which is often misunderstood as just illusion. But here, it's defined more precisely. It's the principle of relativity and duality that governs the world we perceive, the world of space, time, and causation.
Okay, so let's unpack this law of miracles through that lens. The source uses modern physics, specifically Einstein.
It does. The text says that when a master materializes his own body, or moves at the speed of light, he achieves a state where his mass becomes infinite. This comes directly from the theory of relativity.
As you approach the speed of light, your mass approaches infinity.
Exactly. So the yogi isn't breaking physics. He's obeying a higher law that requires changing his consciousness, which then affects his body's mass energy state.
How does consciousness do that?
And when a yogi merges their consciousness with the Creator, they stop perceiving the world as dense matter. They see it as what it really is. Light. Matter is just condensed or frozen energy.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Right. Matter is energy, just in a slower, denser state. To a master in that unified state, there's no real difference between the light rays that make up water and the light rays that make up land.
So the material world is just a high-frequency projection, and the realized master has access to the control panel.
That's a great way to put it. This ability to see and manipulate matter as energy is the law of miracles. It's superior physics, not magic.
And all of this leads to samadhi, the ultimate non-debatable experiential proof.
The perfect union with the infinite spirit. It's the moment consciousness completely transcends maya, or relativity, and enters absolute reality.
The source mentions two types. The first is sabikalpa samadhi.
Right, where you withdraw the life force. The body becomes rigid, looks dead, but the yogi is fully conscious inside.
But the higher state is nirvikalpa samadhi.
Yes. Full, irreversible communion with God that doesn't require the body to be still. You can be in that state even while doing worldly duties. It's the ultimate integration.
Yogananda describes his own experience of this cosmic consciousness as the final proof that just ended all debate for him. He said his physical form melted into a luminescent sea.
And he perceived the entire cosmos, like a sprawling electric city at night, glimmered within the infinitude of my being.
He felt that the Spirit of God wasn't some abstract idea, but was exhaustless bliss, and that its body was literally made of countless tissues of light.
This is why the whole debate between belief and atheism just collapses. Once you experience yourself as the container of the entire cosmos, that infinite light that spoke to you as a child, intellectual denial it's an absurdity.
It sounds like the most rigorous scientific proof possible because the instrument doing the measuring is consciousness itself.
So once you establish that God realization is verifiable and scientifically possible, the next question is obvious. How do you get there?
Right. And for that, we turn to Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswar, and his methodology.
Sri Yukteswar was fundamentally against the idea that you could think your way to truth. He taught that knowledge isn't achieved by theoretical inspirations or unprofitable religious speculations.
He's speaking directly to the skeptical academic listener who thinks they can just read enough books.
Exactly. He specifically warned against it. Do not confuse understanding with a larger vocabulary. Continual intellectual study results in vanity and the false satisfaction of an undigested knowledge.
The problem is that the intellectual approach just feeds the ego. You think you've achieved something, but you've only categorized data.
The perfect example of this is the story of the MA examination scholar.
The magistrate.
Yeah, right.
This man was very proud of his academic rank, and he's debating scripture with Sri Yukteswar and just getting it all wrong.
And when his accuracy is questioned, he doesn't debate the point. He gets angry. His pride is hurt. He just puffs up and says, "Do you know that I stood first in the MA examination?"
It perfectly captures the problem. The intellect, when it's inflated by academic success, becomes the main obstacle.
And the intellectual atheism we're talking about is often born from that same arrogance. The assumption that if my finite mind can't process the infinite, then the infinite must not exist.
So if intellectual study is the slow old bullet cart, what's the airplane?
The airplane is Kriya Yoga. Sri Yukteswar called it the scientific step-by-step technique, rediscovered by the master Babaji.
And it uses breath mastery, pranayama, to control the mind directly through the life force.
That's the crucial distinction. Most paths try to control the mind indirectly, through ethics or devotion. Kriya goes straight for the engine. It's the airplane route to the infinite.
And it's presented as a neutral science, not a religion, so it's accessible to anyone.
Precisely.
So let's get into the subtle physiology a little. Why is breath the key?
Because the breath is the link. Our life force, or prana, is constantly being dissipated outward through our senses. That's why we be tired, why we age, why the mind is so restless.
And Kriya reverses that flow.
It uses specific breath control techniques to calm the heart and stop the life force from being wasted. That retained energy is then consciously directed up through the spinal centers, the chakras.
You're redirecting the energy that normally sustains your external life and turning it inward to the subtle nervous system.
Correct. And the key function of Kriya is to accelerate evolution. The source makes this astonishing claim that under normal conditions, it takes about 1 million years of human evolution to refine the brain enough to perceive cosmic consciousness.
1 million years.
Kriya shortens that dramatically. By retaining and directing the life force, it makes emancipation possible in one lifetime. Maybe 48 years, maybe 24, maybe less.
So you're compressing 1 million years of evolution into a few decades. It's a technology for self-mastery.
It is. And this spiritual power, once you achieve it, it overrides all the lesser material laws, including karma, as it's expressed through things like astrology.
Right. Yogananda is skeptical about wearing an astrological armlet. He thinks it implies God isn't fully in control.
And Sri Yukteswar's response is just pure scientific clarity. It is never a question of belief. The only scientific attitude one can take on any subject is whether it's true.
He admits the planets are real forces, effects of past karma.
But they are not the ultimate force. The wise man defeats his planets by transferring his allegiance from creation, the stars, the material world, to the creator. The soul is always free. It can't be regimented by stars.
So the armlet is just a secondary measure. It softens the karmic blows so you can focus on the real work.
And the power of that real work is demonstrated right away with the healing miracle.
Yogananda has this severe liver illness that Sri Yukteswar predicted would last 6 months. And when it hits, the pain is agonizing.
But the master just ends it. Instantly. He stands over him and says, "You say you have pain. I say you have none. How can such contradictions exist?"
And the agony just vanishes.
The explanation is profound. Thought is a force. Even as electricity or gravitation, the human mind is a spark of the almighty consciousness of God. The master just exerted a superior force, pure thought, divine will, to override the lesser physical problem.
It's a demonstration of a metaphysical hierarchy. The mind connected to the divine is a superior force to the body. It completely refutes the materialist idea that the mind is just a product of the brain.
But the ultimate refutation is the story of the proud doctor, the one who scoffed at the ashram and called it unscientific.
He was the embodiment of that intellectual skepticism.
And for Yuksawar, seeing the man's inner state just calmly predicts he'll die soon from diabetes. Yogananda pleads for him, so the master intervenes for your sake and lessens the illness, but the man eventually does die.
Which proves the master's clairvoyance about life and death.
But the final, absolute proof for Yogananda comes after the doctor's physical death.
The doctor, the ultimate skeptic, appears to Yogananda in a recognizable astral form.
Confirming the existence of the astral world. The greatest evidence against intellectual denial is provided by the consciousness of the denier himself, after he's been forced to see the reality of what comes next. It's the final, undeniable data point.
So, after showing that God realization is verifiable, achievable, and superior to material law, the focus has to shift. How do you apply this truth in the world?
Right, this is the synthesis. How does inner certainty translate to external action? Yogananda initially has this classic aversion to getting involved in organizations. He calls them hornets' nests.
It's a common trap for a spiritual seeker, right? You just want to isolate yourself and find bliss.
But Sri Cheswar corrects that view. He teaches that the highest form of renunciation is only justified when you assume some kind of responsibility in relation to a large number of men.
So true spirituality isn't about running away from the world, it's about scaling up your service.
Exactly. And that philosophy led directly to the founding of the Ranchi School, an institution designed to combine secular and divine learning. It taught academics commercial subjects.
But at its core was yoga concentration and this unique physical system called yogoda.
And yogoda is key. It's a physical system based not on external exercise, but on consciously recharging the body with cosmic energy, prana, through the will.
It's the practical application of the Kriya principle to everyday life, teaching students to draw energy directly from the cosmic source, not just from food and sleep.
It fundamentally reframes the life of a monk. The idea is that the devotee forgoes marriage and family for the larger responsibilities of service to society in general.
It transforms monasticism from a selfish pursuit of personal salvation into a form of societal utility.
And this dedication to service then expands globally through the ideal of the Yogi Christ. Babaji's message for the West, which was the core of Yogananda's mission, was that Kriya Yoga would ultimately aid in harmonizing the nations through man's personal, transcendental perception of the infinite Father.
That's the ultimate humanitarian goal. You don't create world peace through politics or treaties. You do it through individual, verifiable spiritual science. If every person realizes their own self is infinite light, the basis for conflict is just gone.
And the source material gives us these encounters with other great figures who embody this realization in different ways.
Yeah.
Like Ananda Moyima, the joy-permeated mother.
She just existed in a state of spontaneous, unending joy.
She was a close friend to everyone she met, but she also had this profound isolation of omnipresence. She was proof that the state of samadhi could be maintained in the world without constant ritual.
And then there's the ultimate physical defiance, Giribala.
The woman yogi who had lived without food or drink since 1880. Her case was rigorously verified by the Maharaja of Burdwan.
And when Yogananda asks her the simple question, why? What's the purpose of this incredible fast? Her answer is just, it's the core of this whole deep dive.
To prove that man is spirit.
These saints are living data points. They are proof that the laws of matter, which atheism sees as absolute, are actually flexible. They're subservient to the higher laws of consciousness.
They're not asking you to believe. They're asking you to look at the results.
So this deep dive has really taken us on a journey. It systematically dismantles the intellectual basis for atheism and for mere skepticism. We went from that initial doubt embodied by Yogananda's own father all the way to direct, verifiable spiritual experience.
To cosmic consciousness and the frankly mind-boggling miracles performed by these masters.
And we've seen how the philosophy of Maya, when you see it not as illusion but as relativistic reality matter, as just condensed light, provides a scientific framework for all of it.
And Kriya Yoga offers the precise technology to achieve these states yourself in one lifetime. When you're confronted with the observable, repeatable results of realization, the whole debate between atheism and belief it becomes obsolete.
You don't need belief when you have the certainty of experience.
And if you look back at the origins of this knowledge in the ancient scriptures Yogananda was drawing from, there is one final, very provocative thought. It raises the stakes for all of us.
Which is this cosmic ultimatum. The idea that the earth will be dissolved if its people become either completely good or completely evil.
It's the failure to resolve the fundamental duality of Maya that leads to collapse.
So if God realization, through a science like Kriya, is the key to escaping that cycle of duality, to transcending the physical plane, then the ultimate choice for humanity isn't just belief or disbelief.
The ultimate choice is whether we choose the path of transcendence and unity through realization, which is true goodness, or if we stay locked in endless conflict, in the polarizing extremes of good versus evil, which leads to planetary dissolution.
That's the essential challenge of our age. Transcendence or dissolution, what will you choose to explore next?